So I'll be making the video from today's session available via the course webpage. And so I think everyone was able to access that. But if I go to my browser here, this is the web page for our course. So this is a web page just for this one single course. And like I mentioned, it has videos in here. And so I'll be adding the recording as another video to this page this afternoon when the session is finished. So you'll be able to rewatch anything that we went through here. And there's obviously also links to download, step-by-step instructions, and an assignment. So if you have any trouble with any of those, please let me know. So what we're going to cover today are configuring a Mergent Maps project using QGIS, starting from a blank project, starting from the very beginning. We'll then learn how to use the QGIS plugin for Mergent Maps to upload that project to the Mergent Maps server. And then we're going to collect some field data. I'm just going to do it from my desk here, obviously. So it'll be just a short demo of how that works, but I want to, during that session, also share my phone on the screen so you can see how the app works, and I'll show you what you can do with the app itself. And then we will sync the data back and bring that back into QGIS. We'll also look at the Mergent Map server to see how you can administer the project, and then we'll take any questions you have at the end, which will also include things like there are some other more advanced or specific workflows that are possible with Mergent Maps. So for example, if you want to work with a PostgreSQL PostGIS database, there's a tool that Lutra Consulting, who is the company who developed Mergent Maps, has built so that you can connect to your PostGIS database in that situation. And then there's some other workflows that we can talk about, like if you want to attach multiple photos per feature, there's a way to accomplish that. So as I mentioned, I'll be giving you an assignment. So today, you're welcome to try to follow along, but it may go a little fast at times. So it's fine if you just want to watch and you take notes or just watch. And so it's up to you if you want to try to follow along or not. Please, if there's something that you have questions about as I go through it, let me know. But you'll be getting an assignment where you basically build the same kind of project that I'm going to do. We're going to work on a tree survey. So you'll be tasked with doing a similar survey around your office or your home and returning that to me. And you'll have all these resources to work with via the course webpage, the step-by-step instructions, videos for each task. So if you'd rather watch a short video than read the directions, that'll be there, and the recording of this session. So when you turn in your assignment to me, you'll get an official QGIS certificate. So this will be something you can use for your CV. And as we've already discussed briefly, that there are two QGIS related data collection platforms or apps at this point. There's QField, developed by the Swiss company OpenGIS-CH, and then there's Mergent Maps, developed by Lutra Consulting. And they're both built on the QGIS API. So they're very similar. They both allow you to take a QGIS project outside and collect data with it. The reason I started using Mergent Maps more several years ago was that they were the first one to have a version that was worked on both Android and Apple. QField is now available on both platforms, but Mergent Maps was first. And so for me, that was just more convenient and helped when I was teaching courses to have a solution that would work on both mobile platforms. They've also were first to really have a really powerful synchronization engine. And so that's another reason that I kind of adopted Mergin Maps earlier. But I think QField is also a really great piece of software. So I encourage everyone to explore that too. But that's why we're focusing on Mergin Maps today. So when you're working with QGIS and Mergin Maps, there's several ways to get started, but what we're going to do is start out by building a project in QGIS and start from scratch. We'll then use the Mergin Maps plugin to create a Mergin Maps project from our QGIS project, which basically pushes that project up into the Mergin Maps cloud, the Mergin Maps server. And at that point, it's accessible on our mobile device. We can get our phone and install the Mergin Maps app and log in and download our project. And then you can synchronize the changes to the project back and forth as you want to. So I'm going to be using QGIS 3.3.4, which is the current long-term release. And you'll need a Mergin Maps account, so you can sign up from this link. You need to install the Mergin Maps QGIS plugin, and then the Mergin Maps mobile app. And just one note that's significant here is that I'm going to put this link in the chat for you. We have a little chat here on Zoom. I'm going to paste this link into the chat so you have it. So you can see the date of this blog. It's March 28th. So just 6 weeks ago. And so they just finished a long kind of redesign and rebranding effort around the Mergin Maps platform. So there's a new version of the app, a new version of the plugin, and the web page has also been updated. So if you have an older version of the app, you're going to want to upgrade it before you go out and do your exercise, because it's the changes aren't huge, but they're nice. They've made it, I think, more intuitive and cleaner and more modern looking. And there's also some new features that we can look at. So I've updated all the course materials to represent all of this over the last couple weeks. So everything should be current. Let's see. So Mergin Maps is a way to capture your geodata easily with your mobile phone or a tablet. And so it's it honors as you set up a project in QGIS, it'll look exactly the same on your phone as it did in QGIS. So all the symbology and everything will come over just as it looked. So you can view your data and you can see your location on the map. You can capture points, lines, and polygon data in the same project. So you can have multiple survey layers in a project. You can capture photos that are tied to features. You can scan barcodes and QR codes. So it's a pretty powerful data collection app at this point. With the Mergin Maps server, you can store and track changes to your geodata. So if you've used GitHub, this is almost like GitHub for QGIS projects, where it's going to maintain a version history of your project and allow you to download that project at different versions. You can also, you can obviously sync the data, as I've mentioned, and you can do collaborative editing. You can have a survey team that has access to this project, and you can set what kind of access different team members have. If they have, read data, write data, if they're the project owner. So we can look at that as well. And obviously it's integrated really well with QGIS. So if you're using QGIS in your office, it makes a lot of sense to try out Mergin Maps and see if it's a good solution for your data collection needs. So the three pieces of this platform are the server. And so here's a web page that when you log into your account, you'll have a dashboard where you can see your different projects. And for these projects, you'll be able to see how many versions each one has, the size of the project, if you have collaborators on that project or not. You can track changes to the data and the project, manage those versions, and share this project with other people. So some people have even used Mergin Maps just to share QGIS projects, whether they're collecting data or not. And there are also community projects. So you can browse community projects. If you go through the Mergin Maps documentation, they'll often have a public project that's built around that feature that you can download and use. And so you can browse community projects and download those example projects if you want to. And there's a QGIS plugin. So this allows you to sync your projects and create a Mergin Maps project from a QGIS project. And it's going to show up in a couple places. In the browser panel, Mergin Maps is going to be another data provider when the plugin's installed. And when you expand it, you'll see your different Mergin Maps projects. These with the folder are ones that are local on my laptop. If they have a little cloud icon, it means it's a project of mine that hasn't been downloaded to my laptop. It's just up in the Mergin Maps server, and you can right-click on it to download it if you want. There's also a toolbar that allows you to basically create a new project and synchronize it. So you'll see a few different pieces there. And then there's the Mergin Maps app. And I'm going to correct this slide right now. I haven't caught all the changes in here. So it's no longer called Input. It used to be just a few months ago called Input. It's now just called the Mergin Maps mobile app. And this is what the new version of the app looks like. It has a simple menu at the bottom. This is the home screen. And you would click this little icon up here to log in with your credentials if you haven't done so already. This project here is pinned as the currently open project. And then here are other projects that are downloaded onto my phone, but not yet, not open at the moment. And you can see that there's an option to create a project here. You can even create a simple project within the app. So there's also these Capturing Field Data Tour and a Start Here project. So these are two projects that Lutra Consulting makes available on the app just to give you a tour of how the app works. So you can, everyone will have access to those, and you can download them onto your phone, and it'll basically just, as you walk through it, show you different aspects of the app and where to find things. If I switch to the projects button down here from home, I'll see all the projects that I have access to. And so if they have a little download arrow like this, it means it's not on my phone. I would press that to download it. It tells me how current the last change was. This is the one that is downloaded to my phone in dark green. If I click on this, it will open up, and it'll open up just as I saved it last time. And so here I'm indoors. This is my a screenshot, and I'm sitting at my desk. And so this is an indication of my horizontal GPS accuracy. So it's pretty bad, obviously, when I'm sitting indoors, but you'll always have this. This is the GPS button. If you click on this, it'll center the map on your position and follow your position as you move. So that's a nice feature. Then you can see there's a sync button, an add button for collecting new features. You can click this to see your layers. And then this is access to settings and things like that. So if I click add and start creating a new feature, the feature form will open up where I can fill in my questions. So this is what we're going to do today, is create a feature form for doing a tree survey. And you can see when you're done with this, get the zoom control out of the way, you would click this little check button to save the feature. But you notice there's also an option to delete or edit the geometry. We can take a look at how that would work. So there are this thing called Mergin Maps workspaces. if you were reading about Mergeon maps last year, they didn't exist yet. These were just introduced at the end of January as part of this kind of rebranding and redesign effort of Mergeon maps. So when you have a Mergeon maps account, it has a workspace attached to it. And you can have multiple workspaces, but basically your workspace is tied to your subscription. So it's a, as they call it, it's your billing entity. And so when I'm sitting here online on looking at my dashboard, up here under my name will be my workspace. And you may have multiple workspaces. You may have been invited to participate in someone else's workspace, for example. So you can, if you have multiple workspaces, you can choose which workspace you're looking at online by clicking on this down arrow. If we're looking at in QGIS at the browser panel, your workspace will be in square brackets after it says Mergeon Maps. This will be the name of your workspace. And if you right click on this, there's an option to switch workspaces within QGIS as well. So these, if you were working with Mergeon Maps earlier, these replace what they used to call organizations and personal namespaces. But I think everyone's pretty new to Mergeon Maps, so you don't have to worry about that. So the workspace can serve your entire team. It can contain multiple projects, and users can be invited by their email address to a workspace as either a guest or a member. And these users don't need a Mergeon Map subscription to be a guest of your workspace. So that can be nice if you're doing a large data collection effort. Not every single person has to have their own Mergeon Maps account. So we're going to do kind of the long way of setting up a Mergeon Maps project, but the way I'm going to show you gives you the most flexibility to design a project for a specific data collection effort. But there are easier ways to set up a project. So as I mentioned from the Mergeon Maps app, on the home screen, there's this button to create a project. And so that would just create a simple project with a background map, OpenStreetMap, and a point survey layer. And it could be a way to quickly start a project that you could modify later on. In the same way, if you're online on the Mergeon Map server, if you're on the Projects tab, you'll see a Create Project button. So you can create the same kind of project here. And if you're using the QGIS plugin and you want to create a new Mergeon Maps project with the plugin, this window opens up, which gives you these three options. And one of them is just to create a new QGIS project. And so this would be similar to these, a very basic project. If you have an existing project that you want to start using Mergeon Maps with, and I think the Risk Tree project is kind of an example of this, you can package the current QGIS project. So we're going to go over some of the best practices for setting up a project. And one of them is that everything needs to be in the same folder. So what this is going to do is if you have data coming from different sources on your file system, this would package everything into the same folder so that it's suitable for uploading to Mergeon Maps. But we're going to start from scratch and end up using this last option, use current project as is. I already covered these. You have these two getting started projects in the app that you can use to get familiar with it if you want to. And so you can collect any kind of vector data with Mergeon Maps, points, lines, or polygons. And you can have multiple survey layers per project. So what we're going to do in this demo this afternoon is set up a project in QGIS to conduct a tree survey. So this will be something that everyone can find a tree near their house or office. So this would be a nice generic project that we can all complete together. So the basic workflow is preparing the project in QGIS. We're going to load background maps, create a survey layer, set up the forms, style the data. I'm going to show you how to set up map themes for a particular use case. And then there's some project level settings, like defining which layers are your survey layers and which are background layers. And so I'll show you how we set that up in project properties. Once the project is basically set up, we use the plugin to push this up to the Mergin Maps cloud. And then we get on our mobile app, download the project, go outside, collect data, synchronize it when we're finished, and then get back into QGIS, use the plugin to synchronize it again and get the fresh copy of the project and the data and begin working with the data in QGIS. So most of the work is going to be in this first bullet point today, setting up the project. The rest of this is fairly straightforward. So this is important. There are some best practices for creating a project. First, we need to create a project folder. So everything for a typical Mergin Maps project has to sit in the same folder. This includes, the QGIS project file needs to be in there, and all the data needs to be in that folder. For base maps, using XYZ tile services or WMS services like data fasooning background maps, for example, can work really well. We're going to look today at a plugin called Quick Map Services, which if you're working outside of Denmark, provides global base maps. That can be a good choice. Vector tiles can also be a great choice for base maps. Another important item is to use the GeoPackage format for your data. So Lutra created this software library called GeoDiff, and this is what does the synchronization and version management in a Mergin Maps project, and it's built on the GeoPackage format. So this is an important part of working with Mergin Maps. The RISC-Tree project is a kind of a special case. We can talk about that later. But for most use cases, you're going to have your survey layers sit in a GeoPackage. And this is also very important. If you're going to have, like, say, 3 survey layers for a project, maybe a point layer, a line layer, and a polygon layer, each one of those survey layers should be in its own GeoPackage. So in that case, we would have 3 GeoPackages, one for each survey layer. And this is because if you have multiple survey layers in the same GeoPackage, you can run into synchronization errors. And a synchronization error can be caused by changes to the database schema. And so it's much safer to just have a different GeoPackage for every survey layer and avoid any problems later on. So in a QGIS project, your layers are going to be divided into 2 types, the background layers, and these could be things that are read-only, like the background WMS layers, which are read-only anyway. But they could also be other layers that you need for context when you're outside, but layers that you're not going to be collecting data in or editing. Then you have your survey layers, and these are the ones you're going to be editing and putting data into. Okay, so that's a quick introduction. So we're going to go through this process now to start a QGIS project from scratch. So let me get out of PowerPoint and bring up QGIS. Okay, so I am in QGIS 3.3.4, the latest long-term release. And I'm going to start by going to the browser panel, and I'm going to look at these XYZ tile services. So QGIS now ships with these 2 XYZ tile services. And I'm going to add the OpenStreetMap one, and I'm going to quickly zoom into my neighborhood here. I'm in North Shellen. Okay, so I'm sitting about here. So I'm going to set up a project where I do a tree survey on this one block. And I'm going to save my QGIS project, but I also need to have a folder for this. I've already created this folder. It's just called Field Data Collection Demo. So everything I create this afternoon is going to go into this folder. So I'm going to save my project into that folder now. And I'll call this online course May. Okay, so I have my QGIS project and one background layer here. If I wanted to, I could go to data fasooning and use, any of these Scamcoat for a background map, and they would work just as well. But I'm gonna add another layer that would be kind of a more international layer, and it's going to be from Microsoft Bing. Copy this. So they have an XYZ tile layer for imagery. So I'm going to create a new connection to this Bing imagery XYZ tile service. And I'm going to just paste the URL in here and call it Bing imagery. And click OK. So here's my new tile service. And now I can add this to my map. So this is aerial photography. I know we have people working in out of the country as well. So another great plugin that you can consider if you're not familiar with it, I'm going to go into the plugin manager in QGIS. And I'm going to search for one called Quick Map Services. So I'm just going to type in quick to filter the list here. And here it is, Quick Map Services. So if you haven't heard of this before, this is a great plugin that provides access to a series of WMS background maps that are all global. So I'm going to install this plugin. And it's one of the tricks in QGIS is where does a plugin go once you've installed it. This one always lands under the web menu, Quick Map Services. And it'll have a very short list here of background maps, so that's not very impressive. But if I go to settings and I bring up this Quick Map Services settings window, I'm going to go to this More Services tab at the far right and click the Get Contributed Pack button. Okay, and I can click Save. And when I return to the Quick Map Services, now I have a much bigger list, including all the Esri-based maps, Bing-based maps, Google-based maps, OpenStreetMap. So there's a lot in here. And so this can be another useful source of background maps if you need something. So I can save my project. Check my notes here. Okay, so now I'm going to create my survey layer. So I'm going to go to the layer menu, and I'm going to create a point layer to collect tree data in. So it's going to be a new GeoPackage layer. and I'm going to save it into my project folder. And I'll call it tree survey. And I'll call the layer the same tree survey. And this is going to be a point layer. And I'm going to put this into the local UTM coordinate system here that we're all familiar with. 25832. And now what I'm going to do is add a series of fields to this that I want. So for this tree survey, we want to record the species of the tree, whether it is evergreen or deciduous, whether or not it's a fruit tree, the circumference of the tree around the trunk. We're going to record the GPS accuracy, take a photograph, and then we're going to have the date, the current date of collection, a notes field, and then the collector. So I'm going to add these new fields. So the first one is going to be tree species. And this is going to be a text field. We'll add that. The next will be tree type. And then one for recording whether or not the tree is a fruit tree or not. Let's call it fruit tree. Circumference. Distance around the trunk. And this is not going to be text. This is going to be a decimal field. And then GPS accuracy. This will also be decimal double. And then photograph. So this will be text because what is stored when you take a photo is basically the path to the image as a text string. And I did not spell that right. There's a photograph field, the date. So this will be a date and time column. Some notes in case there's anything I don't expect to encounter when I'm outside, or if there's something special I want to put some notes in about. And then collector. And this will also be text. This will just be, or I could call it surveyor. So these are the fields that I need for this. One thing that I've heard, a nice trick that I've heard people use, once you create a Merge and Maps project, you don't want to get into the situation where you need to add additional fields. That is not a best practice because that changes the database schema. And that's the kind of thing that can lead to synchronization errors. So if you anticipate, obviously project planning is one of the most crucial parts of any field survey exercise. You need to know exactly what you're going to be recording, what kind of data that's going to be, and all of that. But if you anticipate maybe needing additional fields, what you can do is add some extra backup fields. So just add a couple of text fields, a couple integer fields, a couple date time fields or something like that. And just have them as backup fields. And then if you need them, you can put in an alias for that field to basically change the name of it. So that can be a strategy if you're not entirely sure if this is the complete set of fields that you're going to need, is just to add some extras. And I've heard that work for people. Okay, so I'm going to click OK to create my layer. So here's my tree survey, and I'm just going to do some quick styling on this. I'm going to use the layer styling panel to give it a better symbol. I'm going to try to just give it like a nice red target kind of symbol. So I'm going to use this simple marker, but I'm going to give it a fill color of transparent fill. I'm going to make the stroke color red. I'm going to make it a little thicker and make it a bigger size. 4. So we have a red ring, and then I'm going to click add and add another simple marker. I'm going to make this a cross. I'm going to make this also the same red, and I'm going to increase the size of this up to like 8 and increase this width the same. So we have a nice kind of target symbol quickly for our trees. So I'll go ahead and click save. So one thing that can happen, especially if you're in Ghana or something, some place where you're not sure what the network connectivity is, you may need an online and offline version of your background map. So what we can do is create offline vector tile versions of these 2 base maps just for our study area. And then we can set up some map themes to work with those. So before we do that, for use on the mobile app, there's one layer setting for these base maps that it's good to look at. So if we open up layer properties for this OpenStreetMap layer, we're going to go to the source tab. And down here, there's this option called tile resolution. And it's best to set this to this standard setting because this will make the labels and things on that background map more readable on a high definition mobile phone display than if it's not set. So this is just a nice little trick when you're using these base maps to set this tile resolution. And I'll do the same for the Bing imagery. It usually doesn't come in set. And when we create these MB tiles, it's going to ask for the zoom level, and it's going to ask for that zoom level between 0 and 20, where 0 is a global view and 20 is zoomed into like a house level. And so we need to know what zoom level we're at. And so there's a handy plugin that can help with this called Zoom Level. So I'm going to install this Zoom Level plugin. This will just tell us what zoom level we're currently at in QGIS. So I'm going to install Zoom Level. And this is not required. This is just a nice handy trick. So now if I start panning this map around, you can see it says I'm at zoom level 18.75 here. So that can help me in this next step when I want to build some MB tile files of my background map to know what zoom level to include. And with that, I'm going to open up the processing toolbox and I'm going to search for MB tile. And I'm going to use this generate XYZ tile MB tiles algorithm here. And when I do this, I just want to turn on the one layer that I want to build these tiles for. And I want to make sure I'm zoomed into the extent of my study area, basically, my survey area. There you go, pan a little bit here, get that intersection. Okay. And so with this generate XYZ tile algorithm, what I can do now is click this button to set the extent to my current map canvas. So I'm not building an XYZ tile service for the whole planet, just the survey area. And then here it's going to ask for my min and max zoom. So that's where this Zoom Level plugin comes in handy. I saw it was 18.75. So I can put the minimum zoom at 18 and maximum zoom at 19. And that should cover my needs. This particular one, if you notice when I was in layer properties, it only goes to max zoom level 19. So there's no reason to include 20 with this, which would be normally the maximum. But you want to be careful how you set these zoom levels, because if you include too much detail, it just increases the size of the MB tile file and can make it difficult to synchronize and difficult to have on a mobile device. So got my extent, my zoom level set, and I'm just going to save the output into my project folder. And I'm going to call this OSM offline. And I'll choose run. So it's complete. I can click close. And if I open up my project folder, I can see it made a pretty nice small MB tile file for me. And so I can now go into my browser for Project Home and add this MB tiles layer. And it's going to look exactly the same as the online one, but this one is going to be confined to the extent of my map. Now I'm going to repeat that process for the Bing imagery. Again, set my extent. Set my zoom levels and save this out to my project folder. Run. Usually orthophotography layers are larger MB tile files. So you can see, yeah, this one is a bigger file, but still plenty small enough to manage on a mobile phone. So if you were going to do an entire municipality, for example, these would be probably too large. You'd probably have to break the area up into smaller units. But now I have both online and offline versions of each of these base maps. And the way I can handle this on my mobile phone is to create a map theme for each one of these. So for example, I can turn on the original OpenStreetMap layer and my tree survey. And then from this, from the layers panel, there's this manage map themes button. And these basically just define which layers participate in the map. So I'm going to go down here and choose add theme. So this theme with just the tree survey layer turned on and the OpenStreetMap layer turned on is going to be OSM online. So I can use this if I have good network connectivity outside. And then if I switch to the MB tile OSM layer, I can create a new theme called OSM offline. So now with these two themes, if I go back, they'll both be listed, and I can toggle on the online, switch to the offline, and you can check that they're correct. And so I'll do the same thing for the Bing imagery. Bing online. And Bing offline. So even if you're not building offline versions of your background maps, this can help to have these map themes set up, even if you just had the 3 standard Scamcoat from Data Fasooning loaded. You could have a theme for Scamcoat Grow, Scamcoat Dimple, and one for Scamcoat Classic. And in the app, that would let the surveyor quickly toggle between those 3 base maps by choosing the different map themes. So these can be, map themes can be handy to allow the surveyor to turn on the best background map for the situation when they're outside. Okay, so we basically have our layers set up now, and there's a couple important project property settings that we want to look at. So we're going to go to the project menu and go into project properties. And we want to define which layers in our project are background layers and which are survey layers. And so we can do that from the data sources tab. And so here we see our 5 layers. And when we're out in the field in Mergent Maps, we can identify features by clicking on them. And we only really need the tree survey to be identifiable. So we can uncheck identifiable for the background maps. It's not necessary. If we had a second vector layer that was going to be maybe our study area boundary, or maybe a roads layer or something like that, that wasn't going to be part of the survey, we would check read only for that layer, and then Mergent Maps Mobile would not see that as a survey layer. So any survey layer needs to have read only unchecked. Otherwise, you can check read only and it won't be seen as a survey layer. The same for searchable. Usually if you have a survey layer like tree survey, you want it to be searchable and identifiable. But you have another vector layer that's just a background layer, you would uncheck those. Another thing to consider is if we, if I click OK and we have our QGIS project, if I click full extent right now, it's going to zoom to the full extent of all the layers in my map. And these are global layers. So that's going to take me to the full extent of the world. Even if I was using a Danish Scamcourt, that would take me to the extent of all of Denmark. And so that's not particularly useful if we're just working in a municipality or a smaller area. So there's a way in project properties to limit the extent of the project, because when we're in the Mergent Maps mobile app, there's a way to zoom to the full extent of the project. And if you don't have this set, it's going to zoom you out to the whole world or something like that. And that's not particularly useful. So here we're going to go to the View Settings tab. And there's an option in Project Properties in QGIS to set the full extent. So I'm going to click Map Canvas Extent. So now this project is defined as just this map canvas extent. So that's another handy setting when you're setting up a data collection survey. Okay, so any questions up to this point in just getting a basic project set up in QGIS? Nope. Nope. So I'm going to install Mergent Maps. And so Mergent Maps gets installed, and so we have a toolbar here. And so the first thing I'm going to do is click this little gear button to configure Mergent Maps. And all that means is enter your credentials. So I'm going to enter my username and password. And you can test your connection. Okay. And click OK. And now I'll be connected to my Mergent Maps account via the plugin. Okay, so what I can do now is make this a Mergent Maps project. And so to do that, I click this Create Mergent Maps Project button. And this Create New Merging Maps project window opens up with these three options. And again, we're going to use this third one because our project is configured as it should, because all of our data is in the same folder, and our data is stored in geo packages, and our survey layer is in its own geo package. So click this button, and I'm going to choose my workspace, GeoMenki. I'm going to give this a name, so I'll just call it Online Course May. There's my project folder. There's an option to make this public. So if I made this public, for example, you'd be able to search for it and find it. If not, then it's a private project in my workspace. And I click finish. And it's been created successfully. So now, if I go online, this is the merginmaps.com. This is where you would sign up for an account if you haven't already. And let me just sign out and show you how this works. I'll sign out of my account and I'll sign in with my username and password. And when I log in, there's Online Course May updated 0 minutes ago. So my QGIS project is now online in my account. And if I click on the project, I can see the QGIS project file, the MB tile files, the tree survey, geo package, and I can look at the history of the project. And I just have one version. If I click on this one version, it's version 1, who the author is, the size of the project, when it was created, and any files that were added. So this is still pretty basic, but I get my version history here. So let's do people want a break? We can take a 5-minute break, and then when we pick up, we'll build the form and show you how the mobile app works. So let's come back at 7 after. We'll just take a short break. And I'll stay online if you have questions. I'll be here for questions. It's so easy to forget that, and then that's not good. Okay, so now that we've created this Mergin Map project and we've loaded Mergin Maps, if I go to the browser panel, I'll see my Mergin Maps plugin here. And I'm writing this Mergin Maps book right now that I think I told you about if you watched the video. So I have a workspace just for this book, which is here. And if I want to switch into my main personal workspace here in Mergin Maps, I'd right click on this and I get a nice menu if I right click on Mergin Maps, and I can switch workspaces, and I can switch into my GeoMenki workspace. And then I see my one local project here that we just built. And then I see a bunch of projects that I have in the cloud that I haven't downloaded. So this is how this how it appears as a data provider in the browser panel. If I right click, I can also go to explore public projects. And so I could go in here and explore, I could search for photo, for example, and see if anyone has created a public project that has something to do with photo in the title. So here's some with examples of using a project setup for multiple photos. And so I could select that and download it and open it. So you can always browse these. We have some for our book, which will be public projects that all begin with QMM. And Lutra Consulting has a lot of public projects as well that begin with documentation. So this is a Lutra Consulting public project that you can download to see how to set up multiple photos. So this is another nice aspect of this, is that you can explore community projects and they can sometimes help you see how something was done. If I expand this online course May folder, I'll see all of my data in the course in the QGIS project. And there's this .mergin folder that is put in there and the proj folder. And these are both folders that are used by Mergin Maps to manage version history and synchronize the project. Okay, so let me see. I'm going to show next. Let's look at another set of nice project level settings. So if I go to project properties, once I've installed this Mergin Maps plugin, you'll notice that there's a Mergin Maps tab in project properties. And this has some really nice features in it. And some of these are quite new. So there's this thing called selective sync. And this is if you have, let's say you have a survey team of 30 people and everyone is taking pictures of trees. And you don't need, when you sync the project, to have everyone else's photos loaded, down to your desktop, for example. You only need the photos that you've taken. So selective sync allows you to specify which files from other devices to download during the synchronization process. So that's a nice option. Photo quality, if you're concerned about space in your Mergin Maps account, you can choose what quality of photo to save when one is taken, original, high, medium, or low. So that can save some space. Snapping, you have several snapping options if you're going to be editing out in the field. The default is no snapping, but you can also choose basic snapping, which would be snapping to any edges or nodes in other vector layers in your project. And then follow QGIS snapping. So you could just set up some custom snapping rules in QGIS and choose that option. Next, we have this photo attachments configuration. So here we can go in and we can set up an expression to set up a custom photo name. So we can, I should be seeing all of my survey layer here. Not sure why, but I hit my expression button and I could enter an expression using some things like @layer name and the date and @username, some variables that would make a unique photo file name based on those variables, so that the photos had a meaningful name, not just the random one that your phone is going to create. And then position tracking. If you enable this, when you go out and survey, you're going to be able to toggle tracking on, and this would record tracking for your project. So as you go from tree to tree to tree, it would record the path that you're taking and save that in its own GeoPackage line layer. So that's another nice option. And so if I choose that, it adds a tracking layer to my project. And so now I've made a change and I can click Synchronize Mergin Maps project. And now that I have a Mergin Maps project that I'm synchronizing, here it's telling me what was changed. It's adding merge and config JSON file and a new tracking layer and some changes to the QGZ file. And I press sync. And it syncs my project. And now I can go back online. And if I click refresh, I now have two versions of my project online, version 1 and version 2. Let me go back into my tree survey and make sure I set everything up right for this. That's because it should have been, I should have been able to set up the I should be seeing my tree layer in here. Let me just see if this will work. I want to show you an example expression for using creating a custom photo name. So if I open up the expression window, there are several variables that come with merge and maps. So let me bring up PowerPoint to show you these. These are these merge and maps variables. So these are variables that QGIS doesn't know anything about, but the merge and maps plugin and the merge and maps app will understand. So I can use these, for example, at merge and username will return whatever username you have tied to your account in merge and maps. Merge and user email returns your email, merge and URL. So you can use any of these variables as default values or in expressions in QGIS if those are useful. So here, at layer name is a variable that comes with QGIS. At mergin username is my mergin account name. And then I'm just using some concatenation operators here to put a single dash between those. And then I have the now function, which returns the current date and time. And I'm using the format date to just put that into a specific format with year, month, day, hour, minute, second afterwards. And that's the kind of expression people commonly make for their photos, but I'm not seeing, my surveyor layer should be selectable here. I'm not seeing it for some reason. So we might be seeing a bug. We'll see. So those are some nice merge and map project level settings that are fairly new, that came with a lot of the changes in the last couple months. Another thing we can do is when we get into the Merge and Maps app, we can browse our features. And so instead of it just showing the FID of your geo package, you can set up a browse, basically a browse expression. So when you click on a feature in the Merge and Maps app, it will come up with an expression that's more meaningful. Like instead of FID 1, it might say apple tree surveyed on today's date. So that's another thing we can do in layer properties. We can go into the display properties. Right here, this tab. And we would enter this for the display name. So I can open up my expression and here's my fields and values. So I have tree species, and I could go in and add another part of this expression, a concatenation operator, and then some text surveyed on. And text is always going to be in single ticks. And I put a space on either side so that it'll be tree species, which might be apple tree, surveyed on, and then the date, kind of figured in the same way. So I can configure a display name like that in layer properties on this display tab for my survey layer. And when I click on it in the app, it will put out a more meaningful description of what was collected. So you can use any of the fields that you're collecting data on to do that. Okay, so now we're going to build the form. So we're going to open up layer properties for our survey layer, and we're going to go to the attribute form tab. So this is where you can build a really nice survey form for your survey team so that it's easy to collect the data. So if we start with this first field, FID, this is a field that is just part of the GeoPackage format. I don't need my surveyors to be entering this. So on the right, I can choose different widget types for each one of these fields. So for the FID, I'm going to choose a widget type of hidden. And that means it will not show up on my survey form, and my surveyors don't need to bother with that. It'll just be collected automatically as part of the file format, and that's that. For tree species, I'm going to use a widget type of text edit. But for any of these fields, you can use the alias as a place where you can put a prompt for your surveyor. So to give them an idea of what to collect. So you could type like tree species question mark, or enter the tree species, or something like that. If you have an area where you think there's going to be a lot of pear trees, you could down here put in a default value, like any text like this, and that would be the default value that would show up for that. So this can help make the survey faster if there's something that's going to be typically chosen as the value for that field. I'll take that out for now. For tree type, we're gonna be asking.
Kurt, just one question.
Mhm.
In the constraints, there's a not null constraint. Is that only for the form, or is that for the data set as well?
It's for the data that's collected. So this constraint section, if I check not null for this, that will be considered a soft constraint, meaning that if the person doesn't enter anything for tree type, they'll get a warning. They'll still be able to save the data, but they'll get a warning that they didn't fill that in, or it's missing. If I check then enforce not null constraint, it becomes a hard constraint, and they will not be able to save the point unless they enter something.
Okay, but this does not have any connection with the database behind the or the data file behind the project.
No, this simply has to do with editing data, and when you are editing data, how that is handled. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So here for tree type, I'm going to choose a different widget type. I'm going to choose this thing called a value map. So here I can basically create a pick list for my data collectors to choose from. So here I'm just going to have evergreen as 1, and I'll put the same as value and description. You can have different values and descriptions. You could have value be a number and description be the text. I'll have evergreen or deciduous. I don't know what the Danish is for that. So you might have, be out on a survey and you want to know what color the building was or something like that. And you might have a pick list of common colors or something like that. Or what kind of car was it? So you can always, if you know what you're going to be encountering out in the field, this can be a great way to make it quick for someone to enter it and also avoid data entry errors because they just have to pick the value from a list. The next one is fruit tree. You know what? I did this so quickly when I was doing it. I meant this to be a Boolean field, not a text field. So so if this was going to be a Boolean field, the type would be checkbox, and you would basically choose true or false. I think I can still do that here. So just, yeah, true or false. Is it a fruit tree or not? If it's a Boolean field type, checkbox will be the automatic choice for the widget type. It will default to that in QGIS. But here I'll just manually set it to checkbox and true or false. And then, you know, for any of these, you can enter an alias. Fruit tree question mark, for example. And then we get to circumference. So circumference is numeric data. And so we can change the widget type, in this case, to range, which is appropriate for number fields. And with range, you have 3 different forms that can take. Editable just allows the data collector to enter a number on their keyboard. Slider will be a slider bar between a min and max value, and dial will be a dial. I'm just going to choose editable here, and I'm going to enter just a min and max. So the minimum, what did I have in my notes for minimum? Yeah, 5. And the maximum, 1,000. And then you can choose a step. You want it to be 0.5. So the user here would be confined to, you know, steps of 0.5 between 5 and 1,000. So you can set the range of the data set using those. And then I can go to GPS accuracy. So another set of variables that is available with Merge and Maps are these position variables. So these are related to your GPS receiver. And so you can see there's the position latitude, the longitude, the altitude, speed. But if I want horizontal accuracy, there's at position horizontal accuracy. And if I use that for the default of that field, then it'll automatically populate it. So there's a bunch of really nice variables in here that you can use to gather some of that GPS data behind your collection effort, if that's important. And if you're familiar with PDOP and HDOP and VDOP, those are there as well. Horizontal dilution of precision. So again, these are things that will be known by the Merge and Maps mobile app, but not by QGIS. But down under default, I can enter that. And what is... Need to copy that. Position horizontal accuracy. Okay, so that's the default value for my GPS accuracy field. So that will get populated automatically. And then for the photograph, which is a text field, and this is pretty common. Most field surveys want a photograph taken. You're going to choose a widget type of attachment right here. And then we're going to, yeah, it can be an existing file. We're going to choose store path as relative to project path. Storage mode is the default file paths. And then the important part is down here in the integrated document viewer, we want to choose the type of image. And you can set the dimensions if you want. I'm just going to use auto. And we have that set. So that'll attach the path to our photos. You can also set a default path for the photos. You can create a photos folder within your project path if you want to put them all in a particular place. That brings us to the date column. It defaults to a date time field type, and we can go down to the default value and put in the now function, which will return the current date and time. And when we're working with these defaults, if you check this box, apply default value on update, this timestamp will update anytime someone edits that point. So if someone moves it or enters new attributes in it at a later date, this default value will update automatically for the date. You can also go in here and give it a specific format for display if you want to. So that's always an option. Then we move to the notes field. And here we have a text edit, but we might want to here choose multi-line so that people can have more room to type a longer note. And then finally, we have Surveyor. So here is another place where we can use a default value. I can use my Mergin username, which is one of those Mergin Maps variables that comes with the plugin. So it's at Mergin _ username. Of course, you have to type it correctly. And it gives me the output preview of GeoMenkey. So now I have my basic form set up, or my widgets set up. And what we can do next is set up the way the form appears. And so here I'm going to switch from auto generate to the drag and drop designer. And the drag and drop designer allows you to create tabs or containers for your different fields and organize them in a specific way. So I can start with FID and just remove that from the form because I don't really need that. It's just kind of background data with the geo package. And then if I have click these a plus button, I can add a new tab or a group to my form layout. So I can add a tab, I'll call this tree info, and click OK. And it creates that. And then I can take my data that pertains specifically to the tree and put those under tree info. Maybe I'll put photograph there as well. And then I could add another container and call this survey info. And put the GPS accuracy, date, notes, and surveyor on that tab. And now I have a basic form set up, and these can really help if you have a long form, can help organize it into logical components. And I should point out that there's also these like other widgets down here that don't connect specifically to a field. So like a spacer widget, I could put up here and to create some space between two fields in my form, and I could choose to draw a horizontal line there, for example. You don't necessarily have to have a title with these usually, it's just there to create space. So you can use those when necessary. And the text and HTML widgets allow you to enter expressions related to those. So if I was going to add a text widget down here, I could simply type, some text in here. It might be instructions for collecting some of the data for the next item. You could use it for that. There's also, if we go in here, there's a current value. Not showing it, but there's a current value function that you can use to grab a current value from what someone has just collected. So you can use the current value function in an expression in a text or HTML widget to, like if someone's doing a car survey and they're taking pictures of the license plates and they've already entered that license plate, you could say, make sure that this license plate is visible in the photograph when you take it. And so you'd put current value for the license plate field, and whatever that person had entered as the value in that license plate field would show up on this text widget above the photo field, and you could give them instructions for that photo. So you can do some very nice customizations with these widgets. I'm just going to delete that one. So click OK. We've got our basic form set up, and save the project. And just to show you how this would work, if I put this into edit mode now and I enter a point, the field form will come up so that I can enter my tree species, the tree type with my pick list, toggle whether it's a fruit tree or not. There's my spacer line that I added, enter the circumference, the photograph, and the survey info. And you can see it's already defaulting to my name and the current date and time. So GPS accuracy is something that would only be understood by the mobile device, so that won't show up here. So that's what the survey form will look like when we're out in the field as well. So I'm not going to save these changes. So whenever we've made more changes like this to our project, we need to save it and then click the synchronize button to push the current version up to the cloud. So it's successful. And if we go online now and hit refresh, we now have 3 versions of our project in the cloud. So let me get onto my phone here. Show you what this looks like. So can everyone see my phone? So here's the Mergin Maps app. So I'm going to open up Mergin Maps, and let me go to the More button, to Projects, and let's see, I might have to switch my workspace here. Yep, okay, Geometry. And now I want to go to my projects. See all my projects, and I should find the one that we just created. Online Course May, updated a minute ago. So I can click the download button to download this project to my phone. Oops. And once it's downloaded, it doesn't have a download icon. It has this kind of vertical ellipsis, and it has a green check mark instead of the cloud icon. So I can double click on this to open up the project. And then we see Mergin Maps. So this is the estimate of my horizontal accuracy. If I put my phone up to the window, I should get a better accuracy. When that turns yellow, it means it's above our accuracy threshold. The default in Mergin Maps Mobile is within 10 meters. So if it goes above 10 meters, it's going to change the color of that to yellow as a warning that you don't have great accuracy at the moment. So when it's green, it's better. And if I want to collect a tree, I would click the Add button. And then up here, we have our survey layer selector. If I had multiple survey layers, I would click this drop-down menu to choose which one I wanted to collect data into. I only have one tree survey. So I click record, and I'm going to enter the one I'm going to take a picture of out the window, the cherry tree. It is deciduous, the fruit tree, say the circumference is 50. And now I can take a picture of it. There's a cherry tree. Click OK. We have a picture of it, and then we can go to the other tab for survey info. There's our GPS accuracy, the date. Enter a note and click save. So now we've collected our first point, and we can click sync. Synchronize successfully. So I can bring QGIS back up and click the synchronize button. It took one photo and updated that geo package. And there's our point. And so now in QGIS, if I click on this point with the identify tool, get my identify results here, we can see all the data. And if I put it into form mode, we'll see the photo I just took. So if I go back to my phone now, I could take a second point. Make another photo. Click save. And so I have, 2 points, and they're obviously very close together. So I could click on one of these, and I could edit it. And if you go into the edit mode now, I could choose to edit the geometry, and I can click on it and move it to where I want it to go. It's hard to control the phone with my mouse. It's not working the way it normally does. There it goes. So now I've moved that point. I could go over here and record a new point over here now. An evergreen apple, and click save.
Can I ask you a question though?
Yes.
The accuracy when you place it, then I guess it should be it just takes in the accuracy of the phone, but that point you just placed far away from where you're standing.
Yeah, I placed a point at another spot just so I could demonstrate another feature to
Yeah,
you.
but it's still it's nice you did it. I wanted to
Yeah.
see if that's possible, but then the accuracy, I guess, shouldn't be automatic.
Yeah, of course, in this case, yeah, if you're going to be doing that kind of workflow, maybe recording the GPS accuracy doesn't always make sense.
It was just a yeah.
Yeah.
But nice that it's nice to see that you can just, a lot of times when we are in the field, you are marking a point on the other side of a river or something, then it's nice to just press it on the map where the
Yeah, you can do that, and then
thing
you
you're
can
looking for is.
also edit these points too. So you can choose where the point gets recorded, like I just did, but you can also, if a point doesn't appear to be where it should be, you can move it on the app as well.
Nice.
So if I click this point here that I've collected, we see our browse expression being used, Apple surveyed on today's date. And we get the data for that. We also get the edit button, and there's this thing called stakeout. Stakeout allows me to navigate to that point. So if I click on stakeout, it's going to give me basically a straight line distance from my location to that feature. Let me zoom out here. So it does it as, you know, a straight line between your current position and that feature. But down below here, it gives me my distance in meters. And so if I went outside and if this is the place I needed to revisit, I could use this feature to get to that point. And as we approach that point, it gives us more information on what direction and how close we are. So that's another really nice feature we can use if we're trying to navigate to specific places out in the field. And one thing I didn't show you is those different base maps. So if I click on the More menu, one of the items we have is Zoom to Project, which would just zoom us to our city block, because that's our zoom extent. Then there's Map Themes. And I can choose any of these. I could choose Bing Offline, and there's my Bing Offline base map. So you can use this, like I said, to choose between different background maps or online, offline versions of them. So this can be a nice use of that. And then there's this position tracking. This doesn't really work because I'm sitting in my office, but if I was going to go outside and walk from point to point to point, I could enable that position tracking, which I enabled, remember, in the project properties on the Merge and Maps tab of my QGIS project. So you have to have enabled that in project properties for this to be available. If you haven't enabled it, it won't show up on that More menu. It won't be there. This is only there because I enabled it. And so here I can choose to start tracking. And we get this little window that pops up that shows us how long we've been tracking. And it'll also show us our distance. If we go back in here and click on that, well, let me go back. I'm going a little too fast. If we click on this live position tracking indicator, it shows us a summary of our tracked distance and our tracking time. And then we can choose to stop tracking. And so this is a way that you can enable that for just part of the survey. It doesn't have to be enabled all the time. You can decide when you want to start and stop your tracking to record that path during your survey, in addition to all the data that you've collected. And then pressing on this GPS button here will center the map on your current location. So it puts this little green ring in the middle, and then that will just center the map on your current position. So that can be a nice feature as well. And we don't have any line or polygon data in here, but if you do, you can enable streaming. And I don't think it's going to show up here, but you'd find it under settings from the More menu. Yeah, here's streaming mode. So if you were going to record a line or a polygon feature, you can choose your streaming mode. And as you move, like if you're going to record the boundary of a park, you could just walk that boundary in streaming mode and it would record that boundary for you as you moved. And you could choose what kind of interval threshold type you want, and you can choose your threshold interval. So that's another thing you'll find in here. And then if you want to get better GP accuracy than your phone has, you can go into settings to manage GPS receivers, and you can connect to a new receiver. So if you have a Bluetooth receiver, I don't have any here. It's finding other Bluetooth devices, but none of these are GPS receivers. But you can connect to a Bluetooth GPS receiver via your mobile device and get better accuracy that way. And what else is in here? Oh yeah, reuse last entered value. So if during your survey, maybe you're going to be recording, maybe there's a line of oak trees. So a lot of the, data is going to be the same as you go down the row and collect them all. You could choose reuse last entered value. And then when you go into your data form to add a new point and click record, these little check boxes will appear. So you check the boxes that you want to reuse the next time you collect a new feature, and whatever you entered this time will show up for the next feature as well as the default value. Just reuse that. So that can help, again, make a survey faster and easier if you're going to be recording the same thing over and over again at a certain point. And then layers will simply show you the layers that you have in your project. If I click on my survey layer, it'll show me the features that I've collected, all with my browse expression in place. And then finally, I can synchronize. And I can go back to my QGIS project and synchronize and have all that data come in. Now it's having to download the photograph, so that takes a little longer. So I have 2 points collected right on top of one another, and then this other point here. And so finally, if I go back online, now I have several versions of the project that we've done during the session. I can go and download a specific version if I want to. And another part of my project online is I can invite collaborators. So if I want to see who's a part of this project, they would all be listed here. So if I had invited everyone in this call to be a collaborator, you would all be listed here. There's a tab for managing the members of your workspace. And if you go into settings, you can see if this is a private or a public project. You can transfer the project to someone else, or you can delete the project. And then if we go over on this left-hand menu, we go to members, we'll see the members of our workspace. So I've invited some other people to be part of my workspace. And I did that by clicking this invite button and just entering their email. And then I can choose the role that they would have in my workspace, whether they're a guest, a reader, or a writer. I think there's actually owner as well. Yeah, admin and owner. So there's 5 different roles that you can assign people when you invite them to your workspace. And so if they're a guest, you can choose which projects in your workspace you are inviting them to access. So you can limit their access to just one project out of your workspace, for example. Reader is read-only access to all. Writer can make changes to all. And then, of course, admin and owner pretty much have full control. And then down here you have your storage space that you've used. So I've used about 1/5 of my storage space at this point. Okay, so that's a quick tour of Mergin Maps. Do we have any questions that have come up?
I was curious, where is the data stored?
The data is stored, well, it's on a server, of course. I'm not sure where. I know Lutra's server is in Europe, but I'm not sure exactly where. I'm not sure if they're using Amazon S3 or what it is. But I believe they have some information on the security behind this, if that's a concern, but I'm not sure where the server is located physically. But that does bring me up to something. At Septima, we are Mergin Maps partners. So, which just means that we have kind of nice tight access to their developers if we need to have a change. And so we are now offering hosting. So we have our own Mergin Map server here in Denmark. So if you prefer a setup like that, you can contact us and we can talk about what would be involved in hosting and security and data backup behind a server. And that also leads me into, there's something called Mergin CE. The community edition. And where is there information on that? I think we've moved it. A lot of things have moved this spring. Yes. So basically they have open sourced the Mergin Map server. So you can install Mergin Map server on your own server and manage your own environment and have complete control over it. It's never quite in sync with Mergin Map server, of course. They hold some features back for the community edition, but I think it has 90% of the functionality at most points in time. So this is another option that you have to have complete control and not be paying Lutra for licensing.
Nice.
So
I
we're
guess
yeah, go ahead.
I asked due to GDPR rules, so it was mainly where is data stored and stuff. And
Yeah,
then as
I
we're
know.
collecting a lot of data, we want it to be in our own servers, so it's at least be able to transfer to our own. So if you guys would be hosting, then we should be able to channel it into our server.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, we'd be happy to talk about that kind of arrangement.
Yes.
So any other questions before we wrap up? We're just about out of time.
Is it possible to add audio fields like you can do in PewDiePie?
Not yet. QGIS supports that.
Okay.
Audio and video, but Mergin Maps doesn't support it, but it is on the list of features to be developed soon. So I don't think, I mean, imagine within a year that will be in place, but it's not there now. All right, well, you can download the assignment from the course webpage and get that to me before the 24th. So you have a couple weeks to get that done. And if you have any issues that come up about this, please email me and let me know, including issues with the course webpage or Mergin Maps itself. And we'll get with that straightened out and see you in a week for our follow-up session. So if you have any specific questions related to your data and your workflows, we can talk about those during that hour session next week.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks for.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Have a good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.